Hey, 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 welcome back to Drive Time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and we do it live, bringing you all the hot takes, headlines, and unfiltered opinions that matter most. Whether you're stuck in traffic, cruising to work, or just chilling at home, we want to hear from you. Today's topics are all about the big stories making waves, but we're not just here to talk at you. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your take on everything from the latest political debates to the everyday challenges we face. Remember, whether you're on the left, the right, or somewhere in between, we welcome all points of view. So grab that hands-free device, dial us up, and let's dive into the conversation. What's on your mind? It's Drive Time. Call in now. How y'all doing? Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
The host has unmuted your mic. Thank you. Sleepy, you want to switch us? You want to stay big?
I got it.
I'm going to play a video real quick because my coffee is just finishing brewing. It's been like thunderstorms crazy all this morning over here. It was one of those nights my old school vampire instincts kicked in and I was up a little bit late. I wish I would have gone to sleep a little bit earlier. It's okay though, but I'm good. Good morning, Lady Alex. Good to see Gabrielle, the producer, in the chat, hanging on out. Yeah, there's a few people there hanging out. Let's share this here. I'm going to play my favorite clip. I watched this 2 or 3 times last night. What's going on, Fred Edward? Good to see you, buddy. And good to see everybody over who's hanging out over there on the Rumbles. Who is hanging out? Is Entenmann Bill there? We're always looking for Entenmann Bill. Let's see if Entenmann Bill there. My nephew is up. He's getting ready to go to parkour camp or gymnastics camp. So we're going to do parkour. Is the Rumble on, Sleepy? Yes, it is.
I think so.
Perfect. I see Bob of Atlantis over there. Econ Car. Is Entenmann Bill? He's not there yet. He'll come along. So there's a couple guys I'd really like to work with, right, in the business that I'd love to like do a show with. Kind of like the Tim Dillon had that kind of like producer was there, except I'd like to be a little bit more involved than Tim Dillon was. I'd like to do it with Jim Brewer. You know, I always said Eddie Griffin is one of those guys. Mike Tyson is one of those guys. Jim Brewer is one of those guys. I don't agree with Jim on everything, but I think his heart's in the right place. I'm going to play this video. This is a funny one. This talked about the COVID situation. We're talking about COVID this morning. I know, right? Dude did sentence cover the primaries. I went to sleep at 10 o'clock last night. Yeah, we had some results in Michigan. I heard our the insider, but playing like an outsider guy from Michigan, right? He won. Whatever that guy's name is, I forgot. We'll go back and look. I can tell that guy's just going to be like one of those, just like the fraud squad. They went in there. You think they're going to do something. You can tell already by his language that dude's not going to be something special. But let's play this. This is from Jim Brewer. I love this clip over here. Welcome to Drive Time, guys. You know you can call on in. The number's 561-247-2721. It's 561-247-2721. You got something to call. What's up, Entenmann Bill, by the way? Yeah, if you guys want to call on in, a lot of fun things to talk about. Donald Trump's no deal. I mean, how many times at this point? This is going to be the most embarrassing presidency of all times. Man, Donald Trump is just crazy. Strait of Hormuz still closed by the closed and controlled by the Iranians, by the way. And if you look into our strategic reserves, that's our fuel and everything that's sitting on the side over there that we have storage-wise, it's been drained. They've tapped into them. So there's some serious fraud taking place. Take a look. This is Jim Brewer. I'm going to take me down real quick. And you're listening to Drive Time. Call on in. Sleepy, throw the number on them so people can see the number. 561-247. Oh, it's down below. 2721, sorry. 561-247-2721. Give us a call. You got something to talk about. We love to hear what you got to say. I'm Craig Pasta Jardula. Good morning, everybody. Our guest, I'll text her. She should be here shortly. It is Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. It is Wednesday. So we should have a fun show. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to take me down real quick.
Trust the experts. Trust the experts. Trust the science. Trust the science. CDC, CDC. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci. Mask on, mask off, 2 shots, 1 shot, mask on, 2 mask. Comply, comply.
Thank you all for coming out and risking your lives. Who wants a shot? Who wants to see a ball game? Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Wave your flipper. That's for you. Go see the ball game. Who wants to work again? That's for you. Who wants their kids educated? Go. What's in the shot? It's safe. Don't worry. Don't worry. Go ahead. Get it. It's 6 foot safe. Social distance, 6 foot safe. Five-foot danger. 6 foot safe. 5-foot danger. If you're 6 foot safe, I'm 5-foot danger. I'm coming to breathe on you. I'm the grandma killer. Listen to the rules. Here come the governors. Bump, 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 bump. We have no rules and regulations. We shall determine who is essential.
I mean, Gestapo tactics.
We shall determine who may go at your house and who shall have a muffin. And remember, if you see any children playing outside together, report them and their parents. This is for your safety.
6 foot safe.
And then the news cockatoos come out.
Watch the news, watch the news. Trust the experts, trust the experts. Trust the science, trust the science. CDC, CDC, Dr. Fauci. Mask on, mask off, 2 shots, 1 shot, mask on, 2 mask. Comply, comply.
People want to fight and argue. You don't understand what's going on. Everyone knows a doctor. I know doctor. And they told me like there's a stockpile.
Facts and figures, facts and
Wow. Genius. Jim Brewer, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Jim, for what I understand, has seen the light. He's got himself a good wife, someone he really loves. This is cutting off too much of my head. I'm going to have to fix this. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe I could just do a little. How about that? We'll go that low. Man. He's found himself a nice wife, from what I understand, someone he really loves. And through Christianity, has has gotten himself to see the light. Look, I don't want to rag on religion too, as well. If it works for you, that's awesome. And I think it's beautiful that we're supposed to be living in a country where anybody can practice any religion they want, as long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else. The only problem is when you start bringing the religion into the politics arena, you have what we have is Christians good, Muslims bad, bomb, bomb, bomb. Good morning, Karen Kwiatkowski. I'm glad you are here, ladies and gentlemen. Our co-host is here for today, Karen Kwiatkowski. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing?
So far, we seem to have a very vibrant, up early crowd. There's a lot of people in early, so that's kind of cool.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get to some big numbers today. I think we got to get to 120 watching at one time. I think we got right around 119 at one point, so we'll see. We'll see how we do. But so far, a good crowd, decent amount of people. They're anticipating you. They hear that Donald Trump has a deal. Look what I got over here.
I'd like to hear about it. Oh, that one.
The art of the deal.
Yes.
That deal.
Yeah.
It says lie 5 or 6 times, and then on the 6th or 7th time, really, really, really mean it. Can you make sense of what he's trying to do? I get that you try to act big, the puffery. You try to act crazy, then it gets your partner to negotiate better. It's like, we better negotiate because he's going to bomb us. This is the 6th time he said it. He must mean it this time. I don't know. I said this is the biggest joke of an administration. Maybe you can make some light of it. I didn't yet to catch your episode on Judge Knapp, but I mean, don't we feel like we're caught in that movie Groundhog Day? We're just talking about the same thing over and over and over and over again, and the movie never ends.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. But I think the Groundhog Day is confined to Washington almost, because some stuff is really changing. You know, this Iran war has just been the thing. You know, it's like this to use what is it? They say these phrases you're not supposed to use. A straw that broke the camel's back. You know, it's like, so what? It's just another Middle Eastern war. We have a central command. It's filled with 50,000 troops. It has, we have ships at sea, and we run this expeditionary empire, and the Middle East is really important to us. And we love oil, even though we're an oil exporter. We export oil, as Trump will say, because we took over Venezuela. But we're still, we're a big oil consumer. Everybody knows that. Even though we've lost a lot of our industrial base, we drive cars everywhere. We're very. It's sad to say this because it doesn't feel this way in the United States, but we are a luxurious society. We live good. We eat good. We don't eat quality, but we eat whatever we want. We drive everywhere we want. We feel like doing something. We get in our car and do it. And so we consume a lot of things, and we don't think about it. We just take, whole generations take it for granted. We have, this is like the same as yesterday. Nothing really changes. In Groundhog Day, same as yesterday. In our foreign policy, nothing changes. But big things have already changed. We've lost this war. We have actually militarily lost this war. From a military perspective, we cannot change the position of our so-called enemy using military power at all. Now, diplomatically, you say, well, we could negotiate. Well, that's what Trump's been doing. Lying, negotiating, tacoing, making threats that he can't back up. And so that's gotten really old. That is a kind of a single tactic that he uses all the time. Guess what? He's dulled the tool, right?
Yeah.
We got a call coming in.
Karen, if you can hold on to that thought.
Oh, sure. No. Oh,
because
absolutely.
we do have a caller, but
Great.
No, they hung up. Hold on.
They did?
Oh, I talked too long.
It's okay.
No, you're good. It wasn't ringing on my end for some reason until I clicked it. So that was my bad.
It's okay. It's okay. The more things change, the more they stay the same, or whatever the don't say the same cliches. But I do think there are some big changes coming. People aren't looking at the oil reserves. They've been tapped into big time. Somebody's been making money off them. They've been drained. I mean, I don't think people realize, and these are the things I talk about with some of my friends, who are normies. They're not really in the political bubble. They watch the show. They're like, man, things went really over my head. Um, and bless their heart and soul, they're just trying to make a buck every single day to keep things afloat. But it's like I tell my friend, because he always tries to make excuse for the government doing what it's doing, for the empire justifying its wars, its imperialism. And I said, well, what about all that money that you've saved up, all that money you put in the bank, all that insurance you put for your children? What if you woke up one day and it was worth a quarter of what it's worth now? That's what we're headed to, and people don't realize we are crashing our economy. You know what I'm saying? Pretty soon, I mean, we keep doing this, and I know people's like, oh, we'll just, we're invading all over the Latin America. We're taking over all these countries. We'll be able to grab all their resources. No, there's going to be uprisings over there. The empire has been extended. We're spread too thin. This wall might come crashing down, and I'm fearful that people just don't see it or aren't even concerned about it, Karen. That's the thing that drives me crazy. They think the norm, the luxuries you talked about, the society, that it's always going to be there. That McDonald's is always going to be able to Uber eat it over, and things get bad, I'll just get myself a Big Mac and they'll deliver it for me. Well, this whole system can come crashing down quickly.
Yeah, it's built on a really, really shaky foundation, and it's been taken advantage of by by all the governments. The state, feeds itself first. Okay, we in the airplane they say, what, put your, affix your oxygen mask before you try to help others, right? You have to do that. And the state, we don't listen to that. People don't even pay attention to what their advice is, but the state does, the government does, and it says we will affix our oxygen mask first, and then screw the rest, y'all, because the planes are crashing. We're grabbing the parachutes. We're out the door. They are, this idea, like you mentioned, this draining of the petroleum reserves, which is down to really, since we've had petroleum reserves. I mean, how many people remember when we didn't have them? I don't. I've always taken it for granted that we have great petroleum reserves in case of an emergency, for emergency need for that kind of energy. And so we drain them down to the lowest level they've ever been. But what I didn't think about that you just mentioned is it's not just draining them like, oh, we need some oil, here's some oil. This is a profiteering scam.
Yeah, it is.
This is like huge.
We have another call. Let's not lose this one, but definitely hold on to that thought. It is. This guy, they brought this guy into every chance he's trying to tell us that data centers are good. All right, let's get to the caller, please. I can just get into this all day long. Caller, you're on the air. Who are you calling? Who's calling, and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Alex again. See what
Lady
you're doing
Alex.
to me. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
From Albuquerque, New Mexico, via New York City. Anyway, lots of stuff going on. Last night I had like a mini meltdown in my brain. I'm thinking, wow, if I'm going to write a list of all the places that the United States is abusing and doing all these terrible things to, wow, check, and the U.S. So I'm like, wow, this is so overwhelming, and the U.S. will not stop. We will not stop to try to destroy, plunder, and pillage. We will continue to do it until we are stopped. We are going to continue. That's it. That's my feeling about the situation. We're not on a road down. I don't accept the narrative of the U.S. is going to be gone any second now. We're at the end of the empire. It's going to be over. I don't accept that at all. We are still the #1 military on the planet Earth. We have almost 1,000 bases. We're still doing our thing. That's where I'm at with that. But I had this mini meltdown. I'm thinking, look what we're doing. Look at this. I stepped back and I went, wow, look what's going on here. Wow. It's just like unbelievable. And then as an aside, you were talking about the jab thing. I'm a nurse and I work for the federal government. Hi, Lieutenant Colonel. I was a VA nurse.
Oh, good for you.
Psych. It was an interesting experience.
I bet it was.
Woo. But the thing with the vax thing, I left and retired early and then came back the last 4 years working from home. and they said that I needed to get the vax in order to be employed, working 100% from home. Unbelievable,
Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
you know?
They did
Yeah,
that
And
for
I
kids
needed the
online in
job. I mean, come
college
on.
in New York. Kids doing online college.
Un-
You got to still get vaccinated.
Unbelievable.
yeah. Well, it's a
And I went. Fortunately, I was the time where I got that J&J, not the mRNA, and I got one only. But I felt so violated. It's like so horrible that I had to do that to myself. It was the worst experience.
yeah.
And but the thing is, and then I also step back and look at this whole situation, and people don't realize the aftermath of what has happened to us as a result of this whole thing. The people's physical and emotional, but what's happened to people against their will, the illnesses and the lifetime problems and things we don't even know about, and people's loss of livelihoods and everything that happened to us. And then I say, guess what? Do you think that this is not going to happen again? American people, to me, are so still beholden and trusting in their government and xenophobic and aid and abet their own suffering. So I'm just looking at these little things, and going, wow,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Can I, Lady Alex? You made 2 points
Yeah.
there too as well, and the COVID. Yes, I can talk about COVID till the cows come home. I stopped talking about it because every single show I was doing for like several years was always had a COVID section in it, and I'm very proud of the work I did. I was ahead of the curve on a lot of things. I was able to get some great sources and get some information out there. So thank you to all those sources. I even had Dr. McCullough on my show about 7 times on my personal show. I had him on my other shows too that I was on. So I could talk about COVID till the cows come home. In fact, I'm writing an article, The 10 Deadly Sins of COVID. I'm trying to work out the timeline. And it's pretty much about that one lie that you have to make 1,000 lies to keep that one lie going. So it was like, oh, we have an outbreak over here from a bat in a wet market in Wuhan, and to keep that lie going. Oh, the PCR. Oh, you know what I'm saying? It's asymptomatic, spreads the disease. A lie after a lie after a lie to keep it going. And I can talk about all that all day. And I'd love to hear your perspective as a nurse. But I do want to start on the first thing you said because I think it's important. And while we got the Colonel here, we got to take advantage. You said that you think that no matter what happens, biggest military in the world, the United States is going to keep going. That's it. There were like times the Roman Empire, right, Colonel, where they had the biggest army, whatnot, but everything just fell off a cliff. And I have a fear, Alex, and I don't know where the Colonel stands, is that the people who run this place will just pick up and move to another spot. The people who own the capital, own everything, the people who are in charge of importing everything into the country, the food lines will just say, screw it, I'll leave you guys, Lord of the Flies, go fight it out, you got guns, and step on out, and then we have mass chaos, our currency sinks, and who knows what happens. That might happen worldwide. It seems like the whole system can come crashing down. You're not fearful of that?
Me?
Lady Alex, you're not fearful of that?
Oh, yeah, I don't have, look, there is such we don't know what the future is going to bring. I don't have any clue. I know things are horrendous now, but I also know the reality of the power that this government / corporations have. I'm a realist, I know things are horrible, but I also know how we as a society, for the most part, react and have reacted to things in the past. I've been around for 67 years, and I've been through a lot. I've fought a lot for things, and I've just come to the conclusion that, the reality is we are still this powerful entity with this incredible military. We are, I call us, sadistic freaks that are just going to keep going and going and going. I don't think that there's going to be a civil war anytime soon. In my lifetime, I'm not going to see that. There's just going to be more suffering. We're just going to keep, quote unquote, taking it. We're just going to keep behaving as a society as we always have. I think the breaking point will only be when a vast majority are on the street, Social Security is gone. I mean, it's going to have to take like major stuff for people, like the draft. You know, it takes such intensity for anybody to do anything, and it's usually reactionary. I don't see that we're going to have this mass revolution. I don't see the United States going down. I don't see that in our lifetime. Things are bad, that's true. But I really don't see that happening in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Because
Let's let the Colonel jump in.
The situation.
Let's let the Colonel jump in, because what I see real quick, Colonel, too, is food lines, food supplies. That thing cuts off, and all of a sudden we have no food. Let's see what happens then. But let's get your thoughts, Colonel.
Well, I want to start with a couple of terms. When you say we, like at the very beginning of your call, you say we got 1,000 bases around. No, we don't have 1,000 bases. We don't have 800 bases. We have a government that extracts our wealth and has built all these bases. So we have to separate our thinking. I wondered as you were talking, I said, I wonder, I don't want to, did you work for government? And you did, you worked for the VA. So you have and I also worked in military. That's my, spent a career there. So there is a sense that, we're the country. We are the country, but we're not the government. The government exists.
Yeah, I meant we, the government. Yes.
I know, but the first step is to let's not identify with the government, because when you talk about the colonialization, the imperialism, the thing that says, why do we need 1,000 bases and this massive military, and why we beat up on all these countries and do all these things, the reason, the things that we do overseas, our government views us much as occupied people. It views us as the subordinates to the government, the fuelers and providers of resources that the government can then leverage and use. And otherwise, if we're just complainers, otherwise we're just useless eaters, as they say.
Useless eaters.
Yeah. So that's how the government views us. And I think Trump is doing everybody a massive favor in some ways, because he is so blatantly has embraced that. I don't think I got a war to win. I'm going to threaten people. I'm going to bomb. I'm going to kill. I'm going to eliminate and obliterate their societies, entire societies, men, women, children, donkeys, whatever. And we think, God, that's horrendous. And then he says, and I don't really think about what's happening to you guys with your $4 gas. What a bunch of whiners you Americans are. And then he said, he said something that should have pissed everybody off, really, especially those who've served and are part of the protective layer of for the country, which VA nurses certainly. He said a couple months ago, when he was doing one of his tacos, one of his big threats that he changed so he could invest in his friends' money. He said, Americans just don't have the stomach for war. We don't have the stomach for it. They don't have the stomach for it. And I'm like, thank you, Mr. Trump. Thank you, Mr. Trump, for illuminating us on what we can and can't stomach. Because there's some things we can't stomach right now. And one of them is this government that profiteers and makes war and extracts wealth and doesn't do a damn thing for anybody in this country. It really doesn't. And, as a libertarian, we would say, like, there's libertarians who are they're minarchists. A minimum amount of state. We accept that. Now, what minimum amount of state do we accept? Well, security. We expect, border security. And then also we're okay with a police, like a state. Could there be, should there be some of these basic functions, and minarchists, who are a sub branch of libertarians. Actually, I would say majority of libertarians really are minarchists. They want a minimum structure that provides the basics. And I think everybody probably agrees on that. We don't believe some people want more than that, but the basic things, our government doesn't even do those basic functions. Okay. Yeah. So we are also colonized. And I'm telling you, if and also you're my age. Okay. So we're boomers, not Pasta. He's not a boomer. He calls me a boomer. I am a boomer. I'm tail end of the boomers. And so are you. You're the tail end. And we are a big group of people that floated up and had our lived experiences and all that. We say, well, we're probably just going to stick it out. We're probably, Social Security go down, but I doubt we'll revolt. You know what? We know nothing about the groups behind us. Okay. And they are very different than us, and they have experienced things very differently than we have. And they didn't grow up with people talking about the great, World War II and the greatest generation. The greatest generation has passed away. for all intents and purposes. And they influenced us, and we worship the state. And the state gave us plenty as baby boomers. You know, they inflated the money, and first user of counterfeit funds gets to buy all the goodies. Okay. And nobody says a thing about it until they realize the money's not worth anything. And then those third, fourth party level people that are handing those 5s and 10s and 20s and 100s and 50s, whatever, they're the ones who say, yeah, I'd like to buy a $50 McDonald's hamburger. And they go, your money's no good. This is counterfeit. And they collect it away. You don't get your burger and you lost your paper money. We, the boomers, were the first users of the counterfeit money. So we have a different experience, and we have a different relationship to government, because government was good to us. Government was good to us. It made us have things and live ways, and we made assumptions about it. Now, did they wake up in 2020 with COVID? Yeah, a lot of boomers said, holy shit, what is this? What is this? This is an authoritarian state telling me what to do. I'm not going to do that. And that's good. That was a little wake-up call. But also, who were the enforcers? Who were the enforcers of COVID? It's the boomers. Who were the people that said, you know, well, I stand against the government. Oh, they want me to take a shot or I'll die, or I'll take a shot and die. But they want to protect us. So we must do these things. We must isolate grandma. We must mask the children. We must stand 6 feet apart and never go into a church or a synagogue or a mosque, because that would be very dangerous. But we can all congregate at Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's, and we can do things that support the economic structure, that's favored. But small businesses, no, can't have that, because that's community. Can't have community. Community challenges the state. Anyway, so we ain't the we. The government is the government, and we are the people. And the people have many tools at their disposal, and it's not just revolution isn't one of them. And honestly, I'll shut up here in just a second, because I did want to address a couple other things. But the model we need to consider is not the Roman Empire, it's the Soviet Union. Okay, Soviet Union didn't have a revolution in that sense. They didn't have a military revolution, but what they did do is they pissed away every bit of power that state had. They extracted resources, put it into the state, and then they colonized in their own way, and fought a Cold War with us. It wasn't like we fought a Cold War and nobody's fighting back, right? The Soviets were like, what did we're going to sell you the rope to hang yourselves with. There was conflict. There was ideological conflict between East and West. But what happened was they ate their seed corn, basically. They destroyed from the inside, and everybody inside with very little resources and a very poor quality of life compared to what Americans have now or had at that time. They began to push back in the ways that we do. They slow walked things. They quiet quitted. They did quiet quitting everywhere. And they said, you know what? If you have something, you must be one of them. You're part of government. And it was true. If you had something nice in the Soviet Union, you were a member of the party. Okay. If you didn't have anything nice and half your family was in jail, you were not a member of the party. Very clear. So they didn't say we the state, we the Soviet Union. They didn't say that. They didn't think that way. And we're not thinking that way today. Boomers are still stuck on that track. Some of them still, probably the majority, probably a slight majority of boomers still believe in the state. But many of them, because of COVID in particular, have pushed back. But guess what? Our children and grandchildren, the younger generations, they didn't benefit from the state. All the state did was rape their wallet, okay? Fight wars that nobody wanted, that they didn't even ask you about before they did them, and drive up the cost, depreciate the money and drive up the cost of things that they want, like houses, for example. So that's their relationship to the state. So when we say we need to identify who it is. First off, we're not the state. Second off, boomers are not the majority anymore. So the we includes all those other folks, and they think very differently about the state. That's why I'm optimistic that we will dump this system. We will be able to take back power. However that looks, I don't know, but I'm very optimistic about actually the near-term future of the United States, because I think we, the people, have just about had it already, and we are armed. It's not armed with weapons. Weapons are just a small facet of power, tiny facet, as we're finding with this war in Iran, which we're losing. Okay. But we have all this military. They have nothing. Trump says no Navy, no Army. We won everything. Then how come we've lost 2 AWACS, spent $150 billion? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Trump. Okay. I'll shut up.
The art of
yeah,
the
I just
deal.
wanted to say, preface
Go
this. Oh, sorry. Oops.
No, go ahead, lady.
Oh, yeah, I have a very unique experience, I think, from a lot of people that I've encountered over the years. I grew up in New York City in Greenwich Village in the 60s and 70s, and my parents were peace and justice fighters, quote unquote, since they were teenagers, leafleting against the Rosenberg murders and against the wars that were going on and all the things that the McCarthy era in the 50s. And so I grew up in that environment. My mother was an artist and took me on protests, and she had the Panthers at our loft meeting, and I had a different kind of experience. And so I was very aware and participated in many things growing up as a young person. And so I always felt very isolated from most of the people around me. I always had to try really hard to find others that kindred spirits. So that was my experience growing up. My parents actually had single men and couples stay with us and help them gain safe passage during the Vietnam War out of the United States to Sweden and Canada. So that's the environment I grew up in. If you have an idea of, that's what shaped me and that's who I am. And I'm looking at this, where I am now and what's going on now. And I see that, people use these terms, boomers and Generation X. I have an argument with those terms. Those terms are given to us and they're very divisive. I don't like them. I don't use them. And so, all of us, whatever age we are, unless we're wealthy, we are suffering in our own way. I see very young people don't have a future. People that are in the 40s and 50s are still working. They're going through their things of problems. Us oldsters that can't retire and we're, having physical issues and stuff. We have to work till we drop dead. And, what about the older? What's their prospect? And they have nobody to take care of them. I mean, if you look at everybody in their individual age group, we all are in this together going through our individual hell. And I hate this boomer, Gen X, this, that, and then calling people Karens, quote unquote. We are spoon-fed these terms that are divisive and lazy to me, and I hate using them. It's like we're advertising the fact that we accept this crap. I hate it so much. It makes my blood boil. It really does. Just an aside. But
I try to use that. By the way,
yeah.
Lady Alex, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to say that much. That I get it too as well, because when people even say left and right, what is left and right anymore? But I do advertise.
There is no left and,
I advertise it because I'm trying to build bridges of peace, and so many people have this kind of sports mentality that I want to say that okay, you're a conservative, you watch Fox News. Look, I'm a leftist libertarian. Let's talk about the things we agree on. And let me show you that even though the state says that I'm your adversary, I'm your enemy, I'm the problem, I'm going to show you that I'm not. So I hear you, and I like to dismantle those labels at times, you know what I'm saying, when people do say that. Because I do hear people always say, like, well, it was the boomers who got us into this trouble because they were asleep at the wheel. They got a lot of nice things. They got to work in a factory when they had factories in the United States.
So lazy.
They got to push a broom, and for that, they got a house with a white picket fence. And you've been mentioning, too, as well, what do the kids of the future have? Something called the Cockroach Party, I heard, is forming in India. Gerald Salente said, look into it. And it's about a party that's kind of pretty much come up from the ranks because there's no future for the youth. And guess what? There's no future for the youth in the United States. There's no future for the youth globally out there, it seems. There might be pockets of places right now, but it seems like we've been kind of put in these positions where you talk about boomer versus Generation X versus whatever they call millennials and everything like that. Well, there seems to be a lot of generational wealth that hasn't been passed down, and a lot of people want to hold on to it too as well, and it's a limited amount. So it seems like we're in that kind of like circular firing ring as well. I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this conversation. I'm going to hand it back to you, Lady Alex, but
Pasta,
please,
I never knew anybody. I grew up in the 60s. I didn't know rich people. I grew up in New York City. My family was lower working class, whatever you want to call them, struggling. We got by. Yeah, things were cheaper. Pizza was 35 cents a slice, whatever. But the system was still there. People were still struggling. There was, the whole, the whole thing about labeling people to me is just insane. Anyway, but all these years later, my whole life, I'm looking at everything and what's going on and what I've experienced, and I decided I'm not voting anymore because it's part of it's meaningless, and it's a exercise in futility, and it really is ridiculous. And I used to phone bank and knock on doors, and I did all that stuff. But I realized, I'm cynical for a reason, and I'm a realist. If I think things are going to work, I'll do it. I do things for a purpose, and I do things because it's productive in my life experience. I don't do, support systems that I feel are part of the problem and are not doing anything. I don't call myself anything anymore. I'm just a humanist, if you're going to label me anything. The only thing I could do now is connect to others that feel the same way I do. I don't want to change anyone anymore, because it's not to try to change people anymore, because that's futile and exhausting. The truth is out there. If people want to search it out, they can do it. I can present them with information. That's all I can do. It's not my responsibility to change people, because I can't do it. I'll help people, mutual aid. That's all I can do, And as on an ending note, I think that because things are so bad, I think it's going to force more and more people to live communally and to pool their resources together to survive. I think that's something I know is going to have to happen. So, but anyway, you guys are great, and it was great talking and stuff like that.
By the way, we're going to let Karen talk, but go ahead and hang up, Lady Alex, so we can, if we do have another caller, they can join. But you said, I don't know what I call myself, anything. I'm going to call you something. You are amazing. Thanks for calling in, my Lady Alex. We do appreciate it. We're going to let the Colonel respond. I'm going to fill my coffee. You're watching Drive Time, 561-247-2721. Colonel, I'm cool with things crashing down and it being community. I can cook.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be useful during the zombie apocalypse. Thank you. Go ahead, Colonel.
The way Alex described where she's at now, I think that is the unifying place that a lot of us are at. We're not interested in the labels, whether they're political or generational. They're just tools, and they're used against us. And I agree with that, even though I participate in that labeling myself. But the things, the just a realist. What can we do that works? Not what can we do that we should do, we might do, we wish everybody else would do. No. What can we do that actually works? And she's described it. And I'll tell you what I was thinking, which I don't know if Alex was thinking this or not, or if she knows about it or whatever. But this whole, it's like a new party, a third party movement that's coming out of the formerly what we would call right wing, if you want to call Tucker Carlson and all these guys former right wingers, like Joe Kent, who quit the thing, right? And you think, Joe Kent, the operative, okay? A lot of people think that. But here's the thing: they're getting together. They're not calling it a party; they're calling it a movement. But I was looking, and I haven't followed it that closely. It is a movement because it's the disaffected. It's the disaffected who really want to do exactly what Alex just said. I want to be a realist. I want to build community. I will do what I can that works. But I'm done trying to change people's minds. I'm going to just do what works, and I'm going to hang with people who think that they also are going to do what works themselves. So we're going to kind of bootstrap this, not like the cockroach party, because that's pretty scary, but I like it. but we're going to bootstrap ourselves into what fundamentally makes sense. It's almost a distillation of why we used to vote, a distillation of why we used to be in this party or that party, why we used to try to change government when we got very cynical about it. So now we're just going to distill it down to what works. And you know what works? Being realistic, doing everything you can do that makes sense to you, and also building community. And that building community part is one thing that we underestimate how much the other younger folks who have grown up with the internet from a very early age have built community. And they've done it in a different way than previous generations who didn't have that technology.
Colonel, so you're saying community, like living on a commune, like communist, a collectivist.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm not trying to sell communism here. I'm not trying to sell communism. But there are some good things about communism, socialism, collectivism, great things about capitalism and marketing, opening up markets. Why can't the Americans, instead of being so scared, because you talk to Joe Kent or you talk to Tucker Carlson, they'll still tell you there's an immigration problem, what's going on and everything like that. I don't know. I mean, I still think they're only representing one ideology, one conservative thinking part. And there are a bunch of common sense leftists. That's what they called me at the first Defeat the Mandates, by the way, Colonel. This is Craig Pasta Jardula. He's a common sense leftist. There's a lot of common sense leftists out there.
Common sense is one of the things that Tucker people are talking about, of course, and so does everybody else. But think about the earlier parties that we've had that have been common sense. And even at the founding level, who was it? I think it was Washington and some other guys of the founders. I don't know which ones. And they were very much worried about party divisions. So we shouldn't divide the Americans. The Americans want what Americans want. We're all almost like advocating, God forbid, a single party, right? They didn't want two parties competing with each other. But that's, of course, what evolved and what we have. But periodically throughout time, we have had emergences of common sense driven parties which are just like what you described. They emphasize community, very much often emphasize localism. They emphasize let's do what works, what makes sense, and not go crazy. Very much golden mean kind of thing. And we've seen them pop up throughout time. And this is also probably back in the days we were fighting Iraq and in the the 80s when the Reform Party came about. Now, problem with the Reform Party is it wasn't a new party. It was a new party, but it was going to reform. Okay. And anything you reform is not, I'm more radical. I think you need to, cut a head off the snake. And
you're more of a Marxist.
Yeah, probably. Not really. How dare I say that? But the Reform Party, with that, who was the guy with the ears?
Ross Perot.
Yeah. So Ross Perot came from a very much, Republican. You would have to say probably a Republican. But he does the independent thing. And what makes his party popular? People didn't really like Ross Perot. He wasn't a particularly great politician or speaker or anything like that. What attracted people to the Reform Party was common sense. This is what he was communicating across all the various political divisions, and he got a good amount of, the guy actually did very well for a third party. And given how our system is structured, third parties really can't prevail at the national level because the Electoral College is set up that way with all or nothing distribution. And we'll see if that evolves differently in the future. But this idea of common sense is unifying. And I'll tell you this, two other little examples, okay? Communal living. So the immigrants, you could say immigrants. And I'm not going to differentiate between illegal, legal, because that's state. The state decides if it's legal or illegal. We could talk immigration all day long on why they have to come here. Why? Well, that's our foreign policy. We've caused that, like you've said, you've mentioned this multiple times before. But once people, and this is also not just immigrants, this is people of not good economic means. Okay. Whether that's starting out, like you're 18 years old and you're starting out. What do you do when you get your first apartment? If you do get your first apartment and you're 19, 20 years old and you get it, what's the first thing you do with that apartment? You say, this is great. I need a roommate. This is great, but I need 2 roommates. This is wonderful. I love this house, but I need 5 roommates. Okay. And you get them. That's living communally. That's what also this joke that we've had for probably the last 25 years in my life. Even when I was in the military, picking on people whose kids live in the basement. Oh, he's a basement dweller. He lives in his mommy's basement. And we ridiculed that. Why do we ridicule that? When I was stationed in Italy, we lived in the community, not on base housing. And all the Italians lived like that. They have a house. And grandma's there, grandpa's there. Sometimes their uncles live there. Yeah. You got your 50-year-old family with the teenage kids. And if they get married and have kids, they move in too. And that is, to me, that's community. That's family, familia. Yeah. Wonderful. But these choices that Americans make that, we have to, everybody, we have to do it this way. We don't. And if you look at how, and this is actually, okay, this is going to sound like really judgmental and whatever, but we have chicken processing factories. One big one that we pass by every day when you go to town. If you go to town, you're going to pass by this chicken factory. And there are, of course, a trailer park operation that the company, it's like the coal mine thing, like where you have a company housing and the company store and all your workers live there. They got that for their workers. And periodically they do quote unquote raids. I don't think ICE has ever been there, but these people are, they're being used, but you know what?
Yeah.
They come from a place where maybe this is good for them.
It seems like a lot of those places, Colonel, it's either immigrants or convicted felons that are let out early.
Well, there's an awful lot of convicted felons there too.
That go work. To do that work. Oof.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard work. It's hard work. And we also have a lot of other folks that we've got from, there's a lot of people from Central Africa that have been, I don't know how they got here, and they put them in that chicken factory. And I don't even understand, but anyway, and there's some Americans that work there too. It's considered actually a pretty good job if you can get it. I live in a rural area.
Yeah.
And, but you can see certain houses that, people that work in chicken houses have entrepreneurially acquired, not very good houses. And there will be 10, 15 cars parked there because they've bunked it. They've turned a house into what we used to have. My, grandmother, my husband's grandmother, I asked her once, how'd you do during the Depression? Because I figured they'd have Depression stories like my parents had, which were not particularly positive. And she goes, oh, we made money during the Depression. I'm like, what? I never heard that before. And she said, yeah, we had a big house and we had a market garden in the backyard. And we had people work for free. They lived for free, or they worked, or they paid us a small amount of rent, but they communally lived. Now that's also capitalism. They're charging, right? This is people that maybe didn't have choices, but is there better ways to live communally, voluntarily contributing? Sure. We have utopian communes. We have kibbutzes. Some of this stuff works, some of it doesn't. But the idea that we cannot live multi-generationally with people we are related to and people we aren't related to. This is very much what younger generations are discovering. Okay. Yeah. They are discovering it because we've ruined our money and drove up the price of housing. So they're discovering new ways of living. So community evolves, and it doesn't have a political label to it. It evolves partly out of necessity and partly out of cultural willingness to embrace your family, loved ones, and relatives. So that is a wonderfully powerful movement that many, I'm going to use the word boomers, that many of these generations look, what did we seriously, and you're not much, you're younger than me, so you're not that. But our expectations were you grow up and you go start your own family separately. You might live halfway around the country. Of course, in the military, we got moved, and that was great. Yeah, I'm going to live 500 miles away from my parents. And we've had probably half the population in this country that was born here that could have chosen to live close to home and build community. Half of them did, but half of them went far, far away. And that was a sign of success. It was like, this is good. Some people actually look down on those when you go to high school reunions, which I don't usually do that, but people look down, oh, you stayed here. Oh, isn't that special? Isn't that special? You stayed at home. But this is a good thing for society when you build these relationships that can't be broken by, I don't know, a COVID mandate, right? And look at how our society's relationships were shattered in many ways. People stopped talking to their families. And
this is interesting. I've never heard this point of view before, and I'm thinking about it now. It's like, because you know what I was going to mention? Sleepy, if you could put us equally real quick. Thank you. I was going to mention the fact that the one thing I notice about Latin America that's so different than the United States is no nursing homes. There's no nursing homes. There's very few of them. They don't exist almost, you know what I'm saying? And they have that basement living or the extra bedroom living. And it's very interesting that you bring this to the table because I'm like, wow, I remember now living in COVID. I lived in a house in Pasadena. There was 4 of us in the house, you know what I'm saying? I cooked all the time. We had dinners together. We talked a lot. We weren't going out. There was no more hanging at the bar. We played board games and did karaoke or whatever and stuff like that. But we did build more of a bond in a community because we were forced to.
Yeah.
And I always think about the things that they did to us during COVID.
Yes.
The mask that they put on these kids
They wanted
that
to
mess
break
with their
it,
motor
they wanted to
skills, right?
destroy it. The
Right.
whole thing with COVID.
Got a
okay,
caller too.
Yeah.
But the government's authoritarianism and government's totalitarianism, which we saw in COVID, we'll see it again. It's coming back. It never went away. The wars are part of it. But why does government do that? They are targeting the things that unify us. And a lot of what unifies us is the fussing and fighting and living and loving of being with your community, your people, your neighbors, knowing who they are. Government doesn't want that, because that leads to what Alex is talking about, which is movements, people in the street. It's good things are happening.
All right, we got a caller.
Yeah, let's jump on the caller. But the problem is, you put all these people together for community, and you throw Adderall in the mix, and it screws everything up. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from?
It's Joanna from Orlando.
Joanna, how you doing, Joanna? You're here with the Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. What do you got for us this morning?
Yeah, I wanted to just touch a little bit on the differences between a lot of Latin American communities. Like you were explaining how they do, and it's not only Latin America, it's really immigrants from everywhere. They tend to stay together. And I think from my generation, I'm a millennial, and my background and the people that I know, our upbringing as a millennial was, we were like latchkey kids, like Gen X was in the beginning. But there was a lot of, this just is not going to sound right, but there was a lot of abuse that happened. And then what it ends up turning into is that we don't want to be around our families. And we're trying to break generational curses that's happened for Americans. But when you come from these other communities, these other countries, they have a different type of culture than what we've cultivated here. And they do tend to stay together a lot more often because they don't have those same ideals. Like my father's side of the family are very, very close with each other. They all have grown up to be successful, but it started with all of them coming from Haiti and living with each other and taking care of each other and having that same community all come over at once. And then having this, you have to go to school and you have to do something with yourself. It's something that a lot in my generation didn't have. We didn't have that extra push to do more. Of course, there are some that have, for sure. But I think a lot of our generation, ripped from our families, or, for whatever arbitrary reason, whether it's justified, but also not justified. But then that makes this culture where, like, I don't want to live with anybody else, and then, we're trying to make it by ourselves the way our grandparents did, but then we can't because my grandparents, they bought their house in Jersey for $300 a paperclip and the house was $20,000 was a loan, but they bought that house for dirt cheap and it was a 3-family home. And they didn't have credit checks. Credit checks were created the year I was born. And, so it's a different generation where, it's complicated. It's complicated, and it's more than just, they stay together and we don't because we say it's good to go out, which that is part of it, but I think it's bigger than that.
Yeah. I think we lack culture as a society, talking about the Americans, right? We lack culture, we lack community, and then that means that we lack caring at times. And I think what the Colonel was pointing out is something really important that I never looked at it. And COVID, it looked like they were trying to destroy society, right? Destroy small businesses, make us fight each other. It was so divisive. Thanksgiving dinners were never the same. People couldn't go. You couldn't come unless you take. Karen, you have your own story. My friends have that same.
Everybody's
story
got
too.
that same thing. Yeah.
It's terrible. So, but I do now seeing And I think when you talk about your family, right, and we talk about our family coming over here, I talk about the Italians coming over here, there was a necessity and need to come together to pull resources to make things work, right? And sometimes when you remove that necessity, and Karen, you had talked about sometimes they made it very comfortable, right? We talk about, how they had an economy, boomers. I don't want to say boomers, but that generation had an economy. They can work in a factory, push a broom, buy a house, still go on vacation. That doesn't exist anymore, right? But that made, I think, everybody get so comfortable that they had the ability to go buy a house or go somewhere else, whatnot. And we lost a sense of who we were and where we came from. And I think that's where we're at in the United States, where we're trying to kind of searching for our identity as a community, because community is so lost. We are judged, right? Whether success is judged, whether on how much we have in our pocketbook, how much we have in our bank account, rather than what we do for our community. And I think that is a problem we're dealing with right now, Colonel. So,
yeah, it's true. There's also, you said we don't have American culture. It's true. We have a amalgamated culture. We have a lot of different, we have political division, all that. But the thing that we are identified with, that the rest of the world sees America had seen it this way earlier, even though it was maybe warped by a lot of our historical situations. But they see America as two things. Individualism, which is,
Yes.
You would say, well, individualism, that's counter to community, but individualism, and then equality. And what I'm thinking of as I'm listening to these conversations here, the callers, and what we're talking about, in Gaza, of course, they're being assaulted by, fascist, racist state that's killing families, whole families. I mean, they've killed 70,000 kids. They're still finding bodies. They continue to find bodies. The death rate is much higher, the murder rate. So they have no place to live. They're living in tents and whatnot. Many of them have lost family members. But when a Gazan, and this could be anybody, this could be us, we would be the exact same way. It's like this in emergencies when we have floods, like in Katrina or whatever. When you see a child or a dog or a cat or a woman or a man who needs help in a crisis, what do? We know what we do. We grab them. That's our kid. That's our dad. That's our brother. That's our sister. We grab them and we bring them in. So that's community, and that is equality. Because something that Americans have that, and I really hate to compare it to Israel because it's so awful, but Israel doesn't believe in equality, right? There are certain people that, whether it's their paycheck or their European ethnicity or their religious conformance to political Zionism, whatever it is, they're better than the other, and they don't lift a finger to help the other. They are the people that the Good Samaritan proverb was written about. This guy, this ethnic group walks by and sees the guy in the ditch and walks right past, and this other guy walks past and says, well, that's
Hello?
not Klan.
Lost you.
So there is something that we have as an American culture, is this idea of equality, that all people are worth something and all people are going to owe something to each other. So that's one thing. And then individuality, the individualism, rugged American individualism. And that kind of sounds like it pulls us away from community. We live on the mountain by ourselves, in a cabin somewhere. Right? But what individualism really speaks to is, I don't work for a king and I don't kneel to anyone. That's what individualism speaks of. And that is part of our American culture. And I'll just say one last thing that wraps this up is, I'm a huge fan of this anti-flock camera movement.
yeah.
You go on Facebook, anywhere, social media, X, people are saying somebody got arrested for defacing or covering up or spray painting a flock camera. And you look at the comments, and the comments are things like this, very, very hilarious, actually wonderfully funny. The comments go, wait a minute. He was having lunch with me. I can vouch for this guy. He was not there. He was with me. And then the other guy says, no, I'm pretty sure that guy was with me. Me and him were at church at that time when they're saying this was done. So we are all people, the people who don't even know the other people who are doing this. We are unifying. We are forming an anti-flock camera community, and it is so organic. And it's so powerful. It really scares the living crap out of the government, any government, whether it's our government or any other government. This is what they hate. So our individuality and our sense of equality, that all people are equal. This is what unifies and really shapes American culture, whether we like it or not. And when we hear things like, oh, we don't like immigrants, or we got to shut the borders, Trump in particular has leveraged that as a way of saying, well, you must want to vote for me and not the other. But I'll tell you what, in rural America, we are not opposed to immigrants. This idea that we don't like immigrants, we like people that work hard. And some of the hardest working people that most people in the rural part of the country have seen these days are often immigrants. And of course, the urban areas have their own view of, more sophisticated view, like, well, we've made the world terrible and we've got to, we kind of owe immigrants something. But the people in this country don't hate immigrants. Okay. But it is a great leverage point. But I think if we just stick to, the individualism and equality, that we can make our own minds up, that we don't serve the state, we don't serve a king, and we don't work for a president, we don't work for a political party, we make our own minds up. That's the individualism I'm talking about. And also this sense that everybody's life has value and everybody's future has value and everybody's kid is our kid. And this is going to sound like Hillary Clinton. It takes a village. It takes a village. She's talking about the state. But, it does in many ways. It takes a lot of people to build community. And it's our nature. We're human beings. We evolved to care about others, to need others, and to have this amazing emotional and mental ability to work with others. This is who we are, to be human. And we can express that in this country under its ideal form. And our culture embraces that regardless of what anybody else says.
Joanna, are you still there, Joanna?
Yeah.
I'm going to hand it off to you in 2 seconds. I just want to announce this, but the flock cameras and stuff, because I bought a website yesterday because it was so on sale. And I know this might, I don't know, Colonel, you might not know this. I'm sure Joanna probably knows this. She's a little bit younger, whatnot. There was a Snoop Dogg song that got really popular, and he would say D's nuts, right? And it was like a big old joke. So there was this Flock D website. So I was like, well, let me buy Flock D's nuts. So I bought it right now, and I take the cameras down. I just got it parked really quickly, but I bought the website yesterday because it was on sale. And I want to start a movement over here because I hate to say it, though. One of the movements I started before was the FUCK censorship movement, because there was nothing else to say but F censorship. And we made the shirts that said, we went from, news network to news network. It said, fuck censorship, whatnot and stuff. But yeah, this whole movement out there, and I want to put up people going to city councils or any stories on the news and stuff. And I want to use this website where people can go ahead, and they can tell the cops, flock these nuts. I ain't going down with this flock system. But anyways, go ahead, Joanna. Let me let you get the last 30 seconds to a minute. Take your time. Say what you got to say. Thank you for calling the show, by the way, as always.
Yeah. So there was a couple things that you said, Colonel. You said a lot about equality, and personally, I feel like we need more equity than equality. And I think equality is what's dividing us, where when we're talking about equality, things have to be equal. And, we have to make sure that everybody gets the exact same thing, when really everybody needs different things. And it's more about equity. It's more about giving to those who need more and not just giving to everybody. That's like, you have a scholarship, and it is meant for those who can't afford to go to school, but you're giving those scholarships to those who can afford to go to school. Yeah. And now those who can't afford it can't go because the funding isn't there for them. That's what I mean about like the difference between equality and equity. Another thing that you had said was about how in the rural areas that they don't hate immigrants. And I mean, as a brown person in this country, I've lived in rural areas, and it's been the worst experience of my life. And as much as I would like to say, I want to move there, I can bring my vote there, it's not safe for me and my family. And I have yet to find a place where I feel safe in a rural area in Florida, anyway. And also in Indiana. was another place where it doesn't feel safe at all. And I'm not saying it's the majority of people there in the rural areas, but they definitely exist, and they make it very uncomfortable. So, I hear what you're saying when it comes to, well, we don't hate immigrants because we want them to do these different jobs, but there's purpose behind the people who are employing those people. And even, I worked at one place in the rural area where they strictly hired immigrants. And they also strictly hired women for certain jobs and men for certain jobs. And I worked in the office, and the way those in power would speak about them is what got me fired, because I was like, I cannot, I had to say something. And I ended up getting fired and had a whole lawsuit against them because they fired me over that, and I won because it was disgusting. But it's not I would love to say that this country is beyond that, and majority of people, there's still a lot of hate in this country.
Thanks for calling in, Joanna. I'm going to let the Colonel respond, but we're going to let you go because we have to, just in case we got another caller waiting. Thank you for calling the show, as always. Colonel, go ahead and take it away. Appreciate it.
I mean, that is very fair. I can tell you, it is true. Like the chicken houses, the chicken processing plant, they import workers. A lot of them they have a relationship with the jails. So those aren't people. Those aren't people that we consider equal, even though we should, but we don't. And they use those guys, and the prison gets a cut of their salary. There's no doubt in my mind that is some sort of profitable arrangement that they have. And they have, I would say, recent immigrants that are funneled into their workforce, and they're not respected and treated as equals. I'm pretty sure it's like, she's saying. And then there is there's racism, but I wouldn't limit it just to the rural areas. I mean, racism is a problem that I think everybody kind of has to deal with, because there's a little part of them that's fearful and judgmental and wants to blame people that are far from them for problems that they themselves are.
Yes.
And this is well, I mean, Trump is a model poster boy for that. Not that he's racist per se, but he can only blame other people for his problems. He's racist. He's more racist than the average guy who uses the N-word on a regular basis, because he in fact has power to enact that racism. And you can even say that other guy's biased, and Trump is actually racist. And he's been playing and beating this drum. They're sending us their worst. They're sending us, not according to the statistics, they are, my friend. The majority of them are people coming over from other countries, especially Latin America, the North Triangle, Central America, are workers. Yeah. No, he's fundamentally.
I totally disagree that he's racist. He's not racist. He's classist. And it's easy to dog whistle the racist for something like that. But I really don't think deep down that he's racist. It's about class. It's about how much money you have. It's about how much power you have, not necessarily race. I really don't think
they're eating the cats and dogs. He's racist.
Yeah, that's a good point. He is the classist part comes in when he talks about the H-1B immigrants. He wants we'll take a high-tech immigrant from India. We're not concerned. It's not about skin color. It's about what they bring and where they sit in the class level. Yeah, I can see that. But my point about his linking him with or maybe suggesting that he's racist is that he blames everybody but himself for his problems. And to me, that's where the core of racism comes in. You basically look at somebody.
Well, I think that's ego.
Yeah,
I think that's ego. More than anything,
in rural areas and everywhere, people do have, this is a human failing. People think, well, I have problems, it's somebody else's fault, or I'm better than everybody because I'm me and I can't stand, thinking that maybe I'm not doing as well. So we all have, this is something that really, we have to deal with you can deal with it. The government has tried to deal with it. Groups try to deal with it. But honestly, human beings have to deal with this. They're in their own. It's a spiritual problem, and you got to deal with it spiritually. You really do. It's kind of like if you're a racist, you have got to have the Bible had this thing about Saul, a guy named Saul. I don't know, he was a rich guy, whatever, and he did a lot of bad things, and then he had a come to Jesus moment, not really, but kind of, and they had to change his whole name because he transformed himself. That's the whole purpose of that story. The thing of individual transformation from this terrible person that you were to something that is to a person who is humble, who is loving, who doesn't blame his problems on people that he doesn't like, other people over there, this or that. And so there's some of that has to go on in this country. But again, community helps build that, because when we're accountable to people around us, whether they're relatives, loved ones, people on our team, so to speak, being accountable to them is the best way to improve who we are as people. So again, this is why the government hates us getting together, living communally, talking to each other like we're doing now. I mean, why do you think the government, one of the people they fear, one of the sectors that they fear is podcasters who allow other people to talk. They fear a free, they fear people getting together and sharing things so we can find out how much we have in common versus how much we, maybe we thought, oh, we're so different. But no, we find out, oh, actually, no, we share so many things. And so that breaks down fear. And that's how you fight race. Well, in my opinion, that's how racism is going to be healed from a society. It has to be healed from people just being their best selves. And we're not going to be our best selves when we live by ourselves in isolation, worried about every little thing behind locked doors, hating everyone. That's not how we be our best selves. We are our best selves when we're living with people who every once in a while or constantly, like our mothers and fathers might have done when we were little, corrected us, showed us a different way, challenged us on our bad assumptions and our bad statements. And I don't know, I think that's community solves that. It helps build that. And the more we build community, the better we're going to be. I do think, I don't think we're naturally racist. I think we may be fearful of things we don't know, but I don't think human beings are naturally racist. And, to bring it back to Israel and Palestine, which is a great example of institutional racism. One thing that causes people in Israel, Zionists in Israel, or people who grew up hating Palestinians, one thing that fixes that for them is actually getting to know an actual Palestinian, or spending time with a Palestinian family, or an Arab family in the region. Very often, that is what changes the political Zionist who hates Palestinians in particular. Getting to know one, having a positive relationship or experience with one, and guess what? It's not that difficult. So many Jewish folk, many who have left Israel, who have rejected Zionism, they say, well, why did you do that? Well, I met a Palestinian. I lived with Palestinians for a couple of weeks, and I was shocked at how nice and forgiving they were. And I couldn't believe it, because the things that are done to them, they should hate us so terribly. But they said, no, they were gracious. They were hosts. They were loving. They treated me as an equal, even though they should have hated me for what.
That's the beauty of New York, by the way, that you can get that in New York, where, you can see a Palestinian and a guy from Israel bonding over the New York Knicks and hot dogs. Joanna, thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
As always, you make the show amazing. I always appreciate your perspective. Look forward to seeing you soon, okay?
Yes. All right, bye.
You got it. So we got about 41 more minutes of the show. We're here with Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. What are we talking about today? We're talking about community. We're talking about love. We're talking about boomers, Generation X. We're talking about immigrants. We haven't talked much about war today. We talked a little bit about war.
Talk about it, yeah. Well, we've lost it, and yeah. I think what's serious about that is the whole world is watching how we failed strategically and even militarily, which is shocking. The fact that we failed militarily is shocking, I think, because, we are the United States, biggest, strongest.
Is it shocking? Is
Well,
it? Because
it
we've
isn't.
always known,
It's not.
Colonel, we've
Yeah.
always known, and I mean to interrupt, but I want to say this before
Yeah.
because I know you got a lot to say in this. You're the military expert on the show, not me. But we've always known that a smaller army or a smaller military on their home court, on their home field, is always been able to outwork, outsmart, and defeat a larger, more technologically army that's coming into their territory. They know the terrain. They understand what's going on. This doesn't surprise me because they've been preparing for this for quite some time. And even people like Colonel Douglas McGregor would say, well, war's changed now. The age of the aircraft carrier is no longer upon us. It's all about drone warfare. Well, the Iranians been peeling off drones off their own machinery, on their own conveyor belts over there and putting them out there for quite some time. So is it really that surprising to you that I mean, I know we can bomb
not surprising to
bomb
me.
them back, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, it's not surprising, but I think it's a demonstration of exactly what you're saying there, that a defensive, unified with society and politics for the most part. I mean, not that everybody in Iran likes their government, and just like a lot of people in America don't like our government. Once the country's attacked, there's a superficial unity, and sometimes depending on the culture and the situation. In the case of Iran, it's not a superficial unity; it is a fundamental unity. So those things are from a perspective of a military person who, we're supposed to be studying wars and the concept, what is the philosophy of war, all this kind of thing. You look at that and you go, well, didn't we incorporate that well-known assumption of how Iran would defend itself, how the society would sacrifice and unify under the leadership to fight to win, the never giving up. This is a clear factor that you incorporate into your war plan. But we didn't have a war plan because our government exists to fight wars, not win wars, because fighting wars is where the profit is, and that's what they're doing. And the people that have been studying this, and just the average American who's like putting two and two together, and they're going, oh my God, we've been fighting these wars, and then when we end one, we pull out from Afghanistan, but then we go to Ukraine. We kind of back down off of Ukraine a little bit, but we find a new fight in Venezuela, and then we're picking fights, and we periodically threaten Greenland with the military invasion. Why are we constantly doing this? Well, that's how the money is made. Okay, that's how your tax dollars distributed to the oligarchs that are associated with the federal government and the military-industrial complex. That's the system, but it's always been there. I say since World War II, it's pretty much been there. And actually, we could go back to Smedley Butler, who fought in the Spanish-American War. That's where he was in the Philippines doing the bidding of Dole Fruit and the rubber company. So he said it's kind of the same thing. And that was 120 years ago when he was experiencing this. So it's not even post-World War II. It's the fundamental nature of how our economy and politics have evolved. They need war all the time. So Americans assume, well, we need war all the time. We fight war all the time. And we always call it a victory, although it was tough with Afghanistan. That didn't really sell to the American people as a victory. It's very obvious that we spent 20 years and $3 trillion replacing the Taliban with the Taliban. And that was something of a bumper sticker that kind of soaked in. The American people are like going, wait a minute, this is crazy. How come our bridges are broken? How come I've broken my axle, my car on these effing potholes that nobody fixes, whatever, all these problems. But we have this. We have $3 trillion in Afghanistan to do nothing, to do absolutely no change whatsoever effectively. So Americans are waking up to it, but still we have the assumption, well, we have the most powerful military. We have the most powerful military. It's very comforting to think that you have the most powerful military because you think it's defending you. Well, it's not a defensive military. It's an expeditionary military. And guess what? It's not the most powerful one because we forgot the logistics end, and we forgot the strategic end, and we forgot the leadership portion. And I'll just throw in one thing that's totally amazing me. In addition to everything else we've learned about, all the planes we've lost that we've never lost before in any, like we've lost 2 AWACS. Does anybody, there's AWACS with the big radar things they fly around? The AWACS airplanes that control the battlefield. One was bombed in half on the tarmac. And we acted like it didn't happen until the images came out, and we go, oh well, I guess we lost that one. And then damage. Yeah, oopsie, and all this other stuff we've lost. Spent. Again, the military industrial complex isn't complaining because they're going to build you a brand new AWACS for $500 billion or whatever they cost. So this system though is becoming exposed. Americans realize we're not winning wars, but we still hoped we were, and now we see with Iran visual proof that there's not just that we're not winning wars, but here's why we're not winning wars. We don't have a strategy. We don't use intelligence that matters. Okay. Because we went in thinking this was going to be like Venezuela. We didn't go in. Trump went in, guided by his commanders who said, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. This is the quality of our leadership. And it sums up to me in the thing that happened last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, where the Central Command commander, Brad Cooper, not the actor Brad Cooper, a little dwarfish admiral, he authorized a letter to go out to the intelligence and other people and the people on the lower down in the line who are fighting this so-called war against Iran, which isn't a war, it's just an operation to support a $1.5 trillion military budget next year, right? Whatever. That's what it's about, destroying what we have so we can suck it out of the American people one more time, rebuild the thing just as awful as it was before. But anyway, he sends this letter out like, hey guys, we're kind of out of ideas. You got any ideas, people? Hey, soldier on the line, Navy guy, do you have any ideas on how we can punish Iran in an innovative way? This is 5 months into a losing war, a war we lost in the very first week. And yet now, and these leaders, these highly paid professionals who have spent their life studying the psychology and the philosophy and the tactics of defense and offense and war. Okay. And they send a letter out 5 months in, like, hey, we don't have any ideas. We're also out of long-range missiles and mid-range missiles. And honestly, we can't even park our airplanes anywhere close to Iran. So we've got them all in Israel. And oh my God, doesn't that make Israel a target? Oh, that's not good. But this is what we have. And hey, we're kind of out of ideas as 4-star, 5-star generals, whatever, 20-star generals. It's all stupid. And we got no ideas. So how about you guys? You got any ideas? And I'm sure. I mean, I'm just dying to find out what's being sent back up the chain, because I can imagine they're getting a lot of answers that say, I don't know, have you checked with Sun Tzu, Art of War? Maybe you should some of the things you said, because you didn't do any of those. You did the very opposite. You did everything Sun Tzu said that will cause you to lose a war, and you actually planned that into your strategy to the extent that you had one.
You nationalized the country by bombing them on a bombing campaign without any way of it's this
Also,
and I used to say, Colonel, that the military-industrial complex, right? They don't care who wins the war. They don't care who loses the war. All they care is that they have the war, because they're going to make so much money. We're talking about this whole thing that they're out of. The Pentagon is denying it. They're out of missiles and stuff. But we already know that Raytheon's got no big contracts to rebuild those THAAD system for $38 billion.
And they're being asked to modify existing production contracts. Oh, that costs extra. You want to modify it? That costs extra. How about we want to improve, we want to accelerate the production line. Oh, I love that. That costs extra. So you guys are eating it up. They love it. The ones making the money off of this. But the other thing that I think they may be giving feedback on is how come we don't just pack up and go home? I'm sure the guys on the front lines are saying, especially the guys in some of the Gulf state bases that were not protected and were lied about their casualties. They told us, shut up, don't talk to the media, don't send any pictures of the damage. And they are saying, like, well, you said I was protected. They watch on TV on CNN where General Cooper says, oh yeah, they were in highly protected barracks. We're sorry something got through and killed them, but and injured so many with brain injuries and whatnot. But they were highly protected. And the guys are in those things saying, wait a minute. There was one concrete barrier about 6 feet high, and we were in a mobile home, a portable trailer with non-reinforced walls behind a 6 foot tall, 1 foot wide concrete berm. Not even a berm, like a parking barrier.
Yeah, no, I saw the videos.
Yeah, and they're saying, wait a minute, what do you mean we were protected? So the very people in the military who are being asked to do the impossible with nothing and being condemned for not winning a war. Oh, well, you guys need to fight harder. Now they ask them, what are your ideas? I'd love to see what the people are coming up with, because this also indicates a fracturing of your whole military system. It's
Yeah.
not just the bad leadership, but there's no connection. There's no respect from below. How can there be? How can there possibly be respect from the guys actually doing the work, the guys and gals on the field who don't make the decisions when they look at this conduct of this war? And as Americans, nobody wants to lose. Americans are just like anybody else. In fact, we're probably worse. We don't like to be the appearance of being losers. We don't like to lose. We have these assumptions that we embrace, that how great our military is, but it's not. And I think this war in Iran is so important because now the whole thing's ripped clear.
Yeah.
The curtain has been ripped aside, and we're looking at the whole inner workings of the military: who's in the top, who's in the middle, how they operate, the stupidity.
I still think people are asleep at the wheel because we got Uber Eats and Netflix, and they're still distracted. It's the great distraction. We do have
Are you
another
ready for
caller,
a call?
though. So, caller, who are you? Where are you calling from?
This is Dave from Melbourne. Pasta, how you doing?
Dave, where you been for the last couple of days? We've been wondering where you're at. Welcome to the show.
I
What
caught
do you
my
got for us
honorable
today?
mention the other day.
Yeah.
You guys started talking about the war, and I'm always interested in the wars, being from a military background. But like Colonel Wachowski was saying, so we lose, and what do we immediately do? Trump finds out that we can't protect Israel and America, so he backs up our troops to Israel. And now they're protecting Israel rather than protecting us. It's just the most ridiculous and obvious farce I've ever seen when it comes to military BS.
Yeah.
And I'm just over it.
We're also creating massive, justified, rational targets in Israel too. So we're endangering Israel as much as we are protecting them, and that's what's really stupid. Because I think Trump really does want to be seen, and he's paid handsomely for it, to be seen as a protector of Israel. And when you park all your targets in Israel, and Israel's a very tiny little place, well within reach, and you've vacated all of your you've used up all of your missile interceptors and your air defense, and now you've made all the targets Israel. I mean, it's simply a matter of time. I mean, there are people that hate Israel as a concept, as a political state. They hate it in the region, and they're just waiting. They're just like waiting for the big attack. Hopefully it won't come, and hopefully we'll have peace and all that. But we aren't protecting Israel by parking all of our stuff there. That is actually making them a bigger and more rewarding target than they already are.
But this kind of goes back to what Lady Alex said in the beginning, right? We're the biggest military. It doesn't look like we're going to change. Yeah, we hear about all this stuff, but Israel seems to be continuing to bomb Gaza, continuing to bomb South Lebanon.
Actually, you know what?
It doesn't look like they're stopping or slowing down.
Actually, something happened, but I don't think it's because of our army or any of our movements or anything. I think it's the political elections that are happening. They changed the policy on assassination in Gaza, which is why they've killed like 2,000 plus people since the ceasefire, because they're targeting what they say are Hamas. I'm sure the AI is coming up with targets, and they're hitting them in some buildings that are still standing that people are living in. They're hitting them in tents, and they're targeting families and people. They're targeting a person, with the casualties being those people around them. And those decisions in the IDF were being made at the lower than battalion level, basically the commander level. You could get the computer to give you a target. Get the computer to give. I mean, we're the AI. Get the AI to give you a target, and then the decision on, do we hit this target? It's a tent located so and so. Do we hit it at 2 a.m. when they're all going to be sleeping in that tent, or do we not hit it? That decision was localized in the IDF, and now they changed it a day and a half ago, just yesterday morning, I think, or maybe the day before. They made a new IDF rule that says now all targeted assassinations in Gaza, I don't think it was in South Lebanon, it's only in Gaza, all targeted assassinations must require the top guy in the IDF to approve it. So now they can't just say the AI gave us a target, let's take it locally. And what it's done is there's for the last 48 hours, there's been one attack like that and nothing else. And that is that's like a 300%, 400% reduction in what they were doing, because there were attacks multiple times a day, targets like that. So why did that happen? You can speculate why it happened. I think It's not because Trump said something to him. I don't think it's because of global pressure. I think it's because of the political challenges that Netanyahu is facing trying to win his next prime ministership with elections in October. There's a lot of debate. But it could be a board of peace bull crap that is going on. It could be anything. But that one little change in their tactical doctrine of who can make the decision on what tents to kill, what tents to bomb, and what Palestinian women and children to kill, they moved it up the chain bureaucratically, and it has reduced it. So I just want to throw that in there. Why that's happening, I don't know. But I would think this is what I'm really, political is one thing. Israel is a big target of Iran. Iran can smack it, destroy it in one night of bombing. They know where all the targets are. They've proven to be very good at hitting those targets. You know, they've hit military bases already in Israel. They've done all these things. So they know what to take out. They can take out infrastructure in 1 or 2 volleys. There's no air defense that can stop it in Israel. Israel knows that. And Iran has made their revolutionary front a broader front than just sacred defense of Iran. It's defense of the people in the region against Israel. This is their alliance with Hezbollah. This is their support for Hamas and the Gazans and the Palestinian people in the West Bank, who are all being assaulted simultaneously by Israel under America's approval, support, financing, yada, yada, yada. We are all in with Israel. You want to kill Arabs? We love it. Do it. And we are supporting that. The U.S. government is supporting that. But Israel realizes that not only are they a target, but they're a pretty defenseless target. And Iran has been very honest and clear. You can say they're honest. Do they have propaganda? Sure, they have propaganda. But when Iran says we're going to retaliate like this, and we're going to hit this military target and that military target, for 45 days of war, they did it. For 40 days of war, they did it. Then when the war picked back up, they did the same thing. So everything when Iran tells you they're going to hit something, they pretty much do hit it. So they've told Israel to back down. And now we're seeing this bureaucratic change that is causing these horrendous nighttime assaults on tents and broken down buildings, killing men, women, and children during an ostensible ceasefire. They changed it in one bureaucratic shift. Why did they do that? I think Israel has realized what we're talking about. America can't defend anything, and they are a vulnerability, not an asset. So this is a major change. And the Israelis actually realize this. The government of Israel realizes that we actually can be more of a hassle for them, just like the Gulf states realize that having American bases right there and firing against their neighbor from and saying, oh, we didn't do that. That was the Americans. They're like, you know what? You hosted the Americans. Your targets are getting hit. Boom. So I think things are changing, and it is force. I mean, it's the use of force and strategy. But as people watch this war kind of academically, because we're not really impacted other than $4 gas, it's like, oh, it's over there. We don't know. It's very complicated. It's not that complicated. Okay. It's not that complicated.
You seem optimistic that this thing is that the oppressors are going to have to pay a price. I wonder what Dave thinks.
I am optimistic.
I wish I can share in your optimism. Yep. I really wish I could. I'm not a cynic at all, but I am not enthused about what is going on, because what I see is them not slowing down. And every single day I look at antiwar.com and and by the way, we keep bombing Somalia. People don't talk about that. It happens like on an everyday basis, on a regular basis. And anybody wants to wonder why all the pushback against the Somalians in Minnesota was taking place, it's to manufacture consent so we can bomb them at home. Dave, your thoughts. Are you optimistic about what's going on, Dave?
You know me. I don't look at glass half full or glass empty. I want to know how much nanotech is in the fucking water. That's always my angle. I'm always looking at what the people can't see. But here's what I see happening from my angle. So we backed up to Israel, who right now is in a position, and this is stated by their own military, where they can't really mobilize on the streets. It's also complicated by local protests, because even though 2/3 of Israelis test out as psychotic, you've got the other 1/3 that are, standing up and saying, WTF, man, we need to stop the madness. We cannot be viewed in this way. And we have the midterms complicating things, so they need to increase their optics. What I've seen happen, and what they're finally admitting, is we're almost out of bombs, we're almost out of missiles. All of this was a giant bluff in the last few weeks. And meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu is discussing replacement theory in America. Since about 2020 with the COVID thing, I've seen the black sun rise over America, the black sun's flag. We've had that going on to where everyone can see it. What I think the next plan is to make Israel try to look like the good guys again. They just suffered a devastating loss in Michigan with Haley Stevens getting stomped. They're going to try to paint the Democratic Socialist movement as the bad guys because that's part of the Hezbollah. And, those scary commies from people who can't define communism. And they're going to populate over here just the way they did with white Afrikaners who already went home. They're going to try to bring Israelis over and literally do the replacement theory. And now we don't have any weapons to actually defend ourselves, and Israelis have constant elevated status. So we're being quietly invaded in states like New York, Texas, Florida, with Israelis who are using eminent domain, even starting fights to steal people's homes.
In America?
Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting. And I'm with you on that greater Israel thing. I think
because I was infiltrating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're obviously this is kind of the by the book thing is being done down in Patagonia and also in Greece and also in Crete and also in Albania. This is, the kind of settlement.
Peru.
Settlement.
They're in Peru now too, as well. Argentina.
Yeah. And it's not so much like it's the Jews. That's not what this is.
The
Zionist power structures, which really leverage existing power structures, as we've seen with the White House, not just with Trump. Trump's very obvious with it, but with Biden and everything else. I mean, remember who was Biden's Blinken? Biden was surrounded by Zionists and put them in these positions, just as Trump has done, just as Trump did even the previous time he was president. And then you look back to Obama and Obama's. Who was Obama's chief of staff? Wasn't it that guy from Chicago? Very much a Zionist.
Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no airspace between any of our presidents and the influence of the political Zionism. And I'll tell you this, I do worry that Israel as a land, they're burning the forests, they're burning olive groves, they're bulldozing everything flat, they're putting bombs under Beaufort Castle, any of these historical sites. They're doing whatever they're doing with Aqsa Mosque and these kinds of things. These historical Middle Eastern biblical, they used to take biblical tours to Israel. I don't think anybody's doing that now, but I wouldn't, but anyway, this biblical cradle of civilization kind of thing. And they're destroying it physically, wiping it. They're erasing Palestinians. Yes, that's clear. Erasure is the policy, and they're doing it. But they're also erasing the long history of the region. They're erasing.
A lot of Christian sites have been blown up, and that's the irony of this whole situation. That the majority of Americans that support AIPAC are Christian. They're destroying their Christian sites, all in Lebanon too.
I mean. Yeah, Lebanon, they've been hit hard.
Exactly. Yeah. But also in Israel proper, obviously, Gaza's been turned into a parking lot for the most all intents and purposes. When they're done, it will be completely bulldozed, and then they'll rebuild something. They being
Jared Kushner and Donald Trump, they're going to build those resorts.
But my point with this destruction is that a culture and a politics that can do this kind of destruction doesn't really love the land. Right? They don't love the land. They have contempt for the land and the people in it. We know that. And these are Europeans. These are European political transplants in there. So they're not connected to the land. In fact, Larry Johnson and some other folks have made the point, and I've seen it elsewhere. It's true that they said something like 80% of Israeli Jews are allergic to the pollen of the olive tree, but the 80% of Jews in Israel that are allergic to the pollen of the olive tree are the European transplants. The Sephardic Jews are not allergic to it. So that's interesting, because if you're allergic to the very symbol of the land that you live in and you're bulldozing it, this is just a contempt and a disconnect from the place. And my point in this long discussion of place is I don't care about it. And if it gets turned into a parking lot by an Iranian Iranian barrage of some sort, which it doesn't have to be nuclear. And the people of Israel once again must flee. Where will they flee to? I think the plan is very clear where they're going to flee to.
Brooklyn.
Well, not just, but you know what I'm saying? So if you're, there's something about people, Jewish folk who are not, they're anti-Zionist. They say, you know, you're warping the teachings of Judaism by jumping the gun on a homeland for Israel, because they say, you know, God said we have to go. It's kind of like the Christian thing, go amongst the world, you know, the proselytize. The Jews don't really proselytize, but they do go out among this kind of idea of who you are as a culture, going out, not coming home to a state that is turned into a little state of Sparta, you know, fighting with everybody, but something else. And that's kind of the debate, the anti-Zionist, Zionist debate within the religious community. So they are making this discussion. What are we as Jews supposed to do? Well, guess what? The long history of Judaism, like other places, like other religions, is to go out, to disperse. And so that's very good. That's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying I could easily see, just like Trump could say, hey, we're leaving the war and we won, everybody will buy it. The Zionists could say, you know what, we thought we were going to have a homeland here, but you know what, we misread our books of guidance. We misinterpreted our true philosophy, which is to disperse, and they're going to jump ship and leave the region.
I've heard Sephardic Jews talk to me about the fact that, you know, Israel, the Jews are not supposed to have their own homeland. Like Sephardic Jews have been like, that's against our religion.
Yeah.
Being pro-Zionist is being anti-Judaism. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, and that's really the issue of the being anti. If you're a Zionist, that Zionist claim that you're forming your state, the religious Jews that oppose Zionism say, wait a minute, that's not what it says. It says God makes that decision, not some Marxists out of Germany. You know, some post-fascist, proto-fascist Marxists who decided to come down and cut a deal with Britain, you know, on Palestine. That's not God's plan. And so this is a debate. Now, who knows what God's plan is? We don't know, but these are the guiding documents that they're debating about. And so I can easily see Zionists saying, you know what, those anti-Zionist Jews had a point. We think they're right. We're revamping Zionism, and this state of Israel thing, maybe it's many states of Israel, because we know there's at least 3 in South America they have their eye on. And you know, look, what's a state? You have territory, you have people, you have cultures, but a state is a political entity. Okay, when I say I hate the state, I'm not talking about Washington, D.C., the swamp, the physical swamp that it was, you know, the hot, humid.
You're not talking about Americans. You're talking about the government.
I'm talking about the government. That's right. And the government, any government, is a state structure, which is yes, you have buildings. You say that's a state building, and you can see it, and you can recognize it, and you can respect it, or whatever, or deface it if you wish. But the state is a concept of rule. It's a concept of force implementation. And we accept it, we create it, we tolerate it, and then we overthrow it or change it or leave it. You know, it's kind of fluid. So I don't see the state of Israel perhaps remaining there if it gets worse than this. And that may be part of the plan. I mean, the colonization of Mediterranean, South America, Central America, obviously the United States, and parts of Africa. Look at Somaliland. Somaliland is totally ripe. I mean, if it was me and I was
those damn Somalians and their COVID things over there taking money and
look, can you imagine what would be better place to go to if you're setting up the Zionist state back in, let's say, the 30s and 40s? You're making a plan. You know, we want this Palestine thing. They had that going on in the early 1900s. It didn't pan out in World War I. Panned out later after World War II. Okay, where do we want to go? I would much prefer to do Somaliland. Take the whole. I say Somaliland. Let's say Somaliland first, then Puntland. We can buy them off easy because that's another independent part of Somalia. And then the Americans have been beating the hell out of Somalia for Lord knows how long. Why don't we just take the rest of that country? That's great. And then we'll have Djibouti also, pre-built military base. And we've got all that beautiful water. My God, we're protected by water. That's just like America, protected by these great oceans. Who doesn't love that? And the resources and the geography and the water. There's headwaters there. So my God, this is great. Oh, we love it. Why didn't we choose Somalia first? And they were offered, one of the negotiators offered, I think, Israel, state of Israel, and maybe Uganda, someplace in Africa.
Uganda is what Israel was talked about first and stuff. By the way,
right.
Yeah.
And that is a pretty landlocked. I don't know if they have a port, but it's mostly landlocked.
That's why they said no. Gaza has beachfront property. Dave, let's let Dave jump in there. We're coming about to the top of the hour. So, Dave, and by the way, Dave, we've been talking about you a lot on the show. On Monday, Snorky called in, and we talked a lot about education that day. And I just wanted to say, man, that when you always call in, you beat yourself up for what you did in the past and whatnot and everything. And you're saying you're using this show as an opportunity to come clean. And I love that. But I don't want you to because I just thought about education and the way we've been propagandized and the way we've been conditioned and the way we've been taught. You know what I'm saying? It's like a human natural evolution for you to go through the things you went through. So I just want to make sure that you know that I think that you shouldn't be holding so much weight on your plate and responsibilities to what you've been through and what you've done and how you ended up here. I just think it's great that you ended up here and that you use this show to speak truth and educate so many people on the things you've seen and warning us mainly about these sun dimming projects and stuff, the way they're keeping us sick. So I'm glad that you're here doing that, but don't be too hard on yourself is what I'm saying.
I appreciate that, Pasta, and I try not to be. But I got to stay focused on the prize, which is, helping to free the kids that can't help themselves, the people that are sitting in darkness, the trafficked kids, the harmed kids, the people who don't think there is a light outside. But here's what I see happening right now. Israel's right to return program is the one that's bringing the settlers and causing the settler violence. This program protects people who are accused or convicted of especially child sex crimes or any crimes anywhere around the United States. There are currently 10,000 convicted or accused child molesters who are hiding in Israel right now, including Brett Ratner, who was the Melania documentarian and given $25 million. And Carolyn Levitt sat up there and bragged about how they brought in extra kids to the White House in Mar-a-Lago to film said documentary in front of this accused child molester while his American victims go without justice. That's what I'm after. I'm after justice. Okay? So here's the plan, right? They move these chomos over there, and then the good Israelis get sick of it, so they move over here.
You're muted, Pasta.
Along with the bad Israelis. So there's always a poison pill mixed in with these people. They believe in siege warfare. They always have. And so in exchange for continuing this violence, they get a free pass in the Gaza area. They get free homes. And of course, they're not going to admit they're convicted or accused child molesters. But then those 10,000 child molesters go around the world and they commit over 100,000 child sex abuses around the world. And we have no way to track them. These are people like Alexandrovich, one of the few who actually got caught in action. However, we have no way to track them. They come to America, they go all over the world, and they abuse kids worldwide. This is why country after country after country are banning Israeli tourism, because they're just sick of this shit. Beyond the snide attitudes, beyond the self-entitlement, beyond the destruction that they cause, they are literally traveling the world to abuse other people's kids. And this connects to the trafficking and the transhumanism. We see what's happening in Ukraine still. And we see this giant farce that's going on. So, I mean, I'm just over it. I see it happening here in Florida with Ukrainians and Israelis. They're flooding in. DeSantis is giving them a free pass to come over whenever they want. If you want to criticize Israelis or Israeli policy, you get a visit from the cops. Doesn't matter if you're a vet. Doesn't matter what it is. We've cracked down on free speech in clear violation of the First Amendment. I mean, Trump's signature on the on the anti-Semitism law was a clear sign to the American people. He cares more about the feelings of Israelis than the constitutional rights of American citizens. And I think we should make some very special exemptions for presidential tradition in that case. And that's before we get to the transhumanism, this DARPA transhumanism that he's all about, funding neo-Nazi Ukrainian biolabs. The home of Ashkenazi and Khazars is Khazaria. Mike Huckabee denied the Khazarian theory, but Khazaria is right there. The history of Khazaria is right there. And we have modern analogs like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky, who didn't die all that long ago, who are listed as Khazarian mafia by our own three-letter agency. We have the Khazarian presence here in America, and they're running our mob versus our mafia. So I think it's about time we get a little more extreme. I'm not for witch hunts, but we need to deport and or investigate all Zionists. We need to immediately remove all Zionists from public office who have dual loyalty, because our Constitution does not allow such a thing, even if our Congress does. And I think that would tip a lot of the hats and tip a lot of the bad bills off our roster that are, persecuting us as Americans just for saying, hey, what the fuck? We're jumping all our munitions. Our people are over in Israel for years now, creating flotilla bases, helping them out. I bet our soldiers are picking up the rubble in Tel Aviv right now so IDF can remobilize. Because right now the IDF can't mobilize on streets, and I think that's why Iran stopped bombing them. They took out all the military targets. All the military are hiding in bunkers. They can't drive around. They can't mobilize. So like Colonel Wachowski said, bringing our soldiers there creates targeting. It creates military targets, which would then justify further incursion or larger weaponry like scalar weaponry or, unfortunately, the constant threats of nukes. Yeah. Just as a last thing, I don't know if you've seen it, but now Trump has done something where he is allowing people for $100,000 a month, I read, to get early access to his tweets about like poly market events and things. So he literally just like took the lid off the Ponzi scheme. I mean, if you can't see it now, then you haven't been paying attention.
That's right. No,
we're really quickly, we're at the top of the hour, so thank you, Dave, for calling in. You got to call in earlier tomorrow. You've been getting up late, buddy. You've been sleeping in a little bit. You got to get to the show earlier. I'm going to let the Colonel respond. We're going to finish up the show. Thank you so much for calling in. You make the show amazing. I mean, really, I'm so blessed to have such a great support system, the people in the chat, the people who call in. And Dave, please continue to be part of the show. And we'll let the Colonel say her piece before we get on out. It is almost 10 o'clock. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's great information and great solutions. I mean, imagine if we had a Congress that actually represented the districts and the voters of their states. We would have pro-Israeli congressmen and senators, because there are states where the American Israeli vote is important. It's an important factor. But what we have is we have every single district in every single state, both senators, completely influenced and controlled and bought off their campaign funding and all the things. So that's not how it was intended. I mean, you can imagine the founders couldn't imagine that. However, the founders were concerned about pro-British, pro-King loyalists in our government. They were concerned about that. This is part of the reason that they have the where you have to be born and who could be president and stuff like that. That was their way prior to the internet, prior to digital money and campaigns that cost literally billions of dollars. Their way was to say, well, you kind of have to be born here. We want that separation between pro-British loyalty. And, that was a thing, because it wasn't longer after we became an independent country that we had another war with Britain. Britain came in, and that was when they messed up the White House, burned it.
1812, War of 1812 or
1812. Yeah. And so that tells you that this condition of what people are worried about was real. They were worried about infiltration of pro-British sensitivities and values, and they didn't want it, and they were worried about it. And they look at me like, wait a minute, are you for America? Or are you for, the Brits? What is going on here? And they were concerned about that. And nowadays we have something similar, except it's way worse and way more pervasive. And we're not even allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed in Florida. I know what you're saying, because I saw where they're arresting people coming after them, but it's not just Florida, it's other places. All of this free speech that they're reducing. Yeah. Why is that? Why would you need to control free speech. Well, we know why, and we've been through it before, and we prevailed in 1812, 1814. That wasn't Israelis. That was nothing. We weren't worried about Israelis. We were worried about British loyalties, because you know what? Interestingly enough, the Brits looked just like us and they spoke English. Wow, where have we seen that before? Okay, so there are enemies within of our political system, and I think that the upper hand right now is clearly with AIPAC and our Congress. Is we don't have a Congress when it comes to our foreign policy. Israel sets our foreign policy.
I think we have to end the show there, but I think we have to be careful of that. If I often say, if we remove the Zionism from our government and our society, are we going to be okay? Because I think that's what people are trying to do. Like, America's being held hostage. That's at least what I get from like Nick Fuentes and like Candace Owens. It's like, just remove the Zionism and everything will be okay. We'll go back to good old fashioned American imperialism. And I think that's something we can discuss next week.
Got to get rid of the imperialism too. And again, Zionism is friendly to imperialism. I mean, it's supportive. So I'm definitely opposed to imperialism, and so is the Constitution, by the way. So
I think the imperialists are happy that Israel and Zionism takes all the blame. And by the way, Dave says he wants to do a Florida meetup. I am down. We'll fly Colonel Karen out here to come join the Florida meetup, or we can all just go to Ohio and hang out on her farm. Either way,
Virginia.
I'm sorry.
my relatives are in Ohio, but yeah, we're in Virginia. Yep.
Virginia, the great state of Virginia. Henry Lee. Thank you, Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. Guys, go check out her work. She was on The Judge yesterday. I haven't watched it. I'm going to watch it today. She does The Judge on Tuesday. She does Drive Time on Wednesday. We got to call Peter Lavelle and tell him we got to get back on the show. I was on with Gerald Celente once, and there was this other Trumper that I just beat up. I haven't seen him since, but I hope they bring me back on the show. Colonel, it's great to speak to you again, as always. I appreciate you making this Wednesdays here so much fun. You got anything else you want to announce before we let you go?
No, just stay awake, and stay optimistic.
Stay awake, not woke. We love you, Colonel. Thank you so much for coming to the show today.
Okay.
All right, let's do this. Music, maestro.
It's on.
All right. So as we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity of thought and the peace we can cultivate with our neighbors. In a world that often feels divided, it's our differences that can actually bring us together. Every unique perspective, every story shared, enriches our collective experience and fosters understanding. Remember, it's okay to disagree. It's how we handle those disagreements that truly matters. Let's embrace dialogue over debate, compassion over conflict. When we listen to one another, we open the door to meaningful relationships. By engaging with our diverse communities, we can find common ground and build bridges that promote peace. So I encourage you to reach out to someone with a different viewpoint. Share a meal, have a conversation, or simply listen. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding in our neighborhoods and beyond. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Remember, together we can celebrate our diversity and pave the way for a more brighter, more peaceful future. So until next time, keep the dialogue flowing and the peace growing. I want to thank Sleepy J on the ones and twos, the engineer extreme, my words are all over the place. The engineer extraordinaire, and also a great co-host and a great friend. I want to thank Gabriel Freedom, our head producer of the show, who does so much work, who's really working in the chat, giving you all the links in which you can help out independent media. It's Wednesday, so I want to thank Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. I want to remind you, I'm going to be on the New York radio airwaves today at 4 p.m. Eastern on WBAI. Last week we talked about COVID and Dr. Fauci, and boy, did I get myself in trouble. Why are you picking on Dr. Fauci, Pasta? I don't know. He's easy to pick on. But of course, I want to say a special love and thanks to my business partner and other co-host, Fiorella Isabel. She's on assignment. We'll be back soon. And to all the beautiful people in the chat, Lady Alex, Joanna, Dave, thank you for calling in. Stacy, I saw you all day. Friendly, brilliant, you were there. All the great people, Entertainment Bill, Fred Edward, I love you all. And until tomorrow, be kind to one another and go forth with peace.